live. A single take. There was no post-production, there was no editing, and there were times when we would walk out of the studio shell-shocked. We couldn't believe all the things that had gone wrong, and we would beg Dan Curtis to please let us do it again. But of course that was impossible. The 4 o'clock news came on and we were out of there. So Dan used to say, oh, forget about it, you know, who's watching, housewives and kids. Well now, 1,225 episodes of Dark Shadows are available on DVD. And just to really humiliate us, because it was painful at the time, you can imagine what it is now, they have culled all the worst things that happened and put them all together on what is called a blooper reel. So unto eternity you can watch us go up on lines, stumble, trip, walk into walls, doorknobs come off in our hands, dead bodies move. One of my favorites, I'm working with Grayson Hall, we're wearing 1790s wigs and elaborate costumes. And this big fuzzy microphone comes down between us. And there was another time when I was working with David Ford, who played my father on the show. And we had a very tense confrontational scene, and a bit of the metal flashing from one of the overhead lights fell down between us. And without skipping a beat, he said, Maggie, you better call the roofers. So that's what it was like working on Dark Shadows when it was live. And but it was a lot of fun and a lot of pranks. I have to tell you, there was one time when I was sprinting from one end of the studio to the other. I had a changing costume. I had to get into a peignoir and leap into my bed because Barnabas was going to bite me. And somebody short-sheeted me. I couldn't get my legs down into the bed. And there were other times you would open a drawer and there was a rude note inside. Somebody would leave. But anyway, that's what it was like. And there were, if you get the blooper reel, you can see us at our worst. But now, jump cut 46 years, because David Selby and Lara Parker, who starred in Night of Dark Shadows, the second of the MGM feature films, and Jonathan Frid from House of Dark Shadows, we were invited to do cameos in the new Dark Shadows film. Now, I have to tell you how thrilling this is, because it is so rare that the actors who originate roles are acknowledged, much less asked to participate. So we were absolutely thrilled. And I will tell you that probably the most poignant moment for me was standing on the set at Pinewood. We were there for 3 days, and the first morning I was standing next to Jonathan Frid when we were introduced to Tim Burton and Johnny Depp. And of course, Johnny Depp was in full makeup, totally in character, and he had his wolf's head cane. And Jonathan Frid had his wolf's head cane. He uses it. He's 88 years old. He uses it as a walking stick. And those of you who know Jonathan Frid, he's a very plain-spoken man, blunt, and he's unfazed by anything. So there he was, taking all the time in the world to scrutinize Johnny Depp's makeup. And eventually he said, well, I see you've done the hair, a few more spikes. And Johnny Depp, in his cultured, his Barnabas voice, said, we're doing things a little differently. It was wonderful. And I took that opportunity to tell Johnny Depp how much we all appreciated the very generous comments that he's made about Jonathan Frid's portrayal of Barnabas Collins. It's incredibly gratifying. And both Tim Burton and Johnny Depp looked at Jonathan Frid and said, we wouldn't be here without you. Very nice. And then after we finished our first scene with Johnny Depp, Lara Parker and I were hustled off to what they call electronic press, whatever it is. And then after that, we were taken to our dressing rooms, which was the last place in the world we wanted to be. And so Laura was almost tearful. She's not at all like Angelique off camera. And nor am I like Gisette, because I sort of took charge and I went out and I commandeered an electric cart. And I told the driver that we had to be back on the set and we didn't know where it was. So the driver took us there and we pushed our way through the big padded doors with the no trespassing signs. And we mingled with the dress extras, who were all 20 years old in mod clothes, so we were discovered pretty quickly. And we were reprimanded like schoolgirls, but then we were behaving like schoolgirls, and we were begging not to be sent back to our rooms. So eventually one of the important people heard about this fuss and said, well, of course they can be on set. So we were led over to our chairs next to Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is in this movie. And imagine, if you will, the look on Jonathan Frid's face when Alice Cooper knocked on his dressing room door and stuck his head in and said, hey, hi, Alice Cooper, how you doing? He's got a white face and black eyes and dark hair and he's skinny, tattoos, the whole thing. And he's just wonderful. He's such a lot of fun, even in a straitjacket. But he's adorable, and so is his wife, Cheryl. They've been married 35 years. They have 3 children. They live in Phoenix, and he plays golf. He is just a guy called Alice. And so we had a really good time with them. And Michelle Pfeiffer was lovely, beautiful. We did a scene with Michelle Pfeiffer and Alice Cooper. And Helena Bonham Carter plopped herself down and sat and talked with us for over an hour. And she was delightful, and she mentioned that she had spotted some of my Dark Shadows books on the corner of Tim Burton's desk, which was really nice to hear. And at the end of the day, Tim Burton sort of gathered everybody around and said, ladies and gentlemen, the original cast of Dark Shadows. It was just lovely, because it was so unexpected, this whole thing. And we didn't take ourselves seriously 45 years ago. We certainly aren't taking ourselves seriously now, because this is just fun. And as Laura and I were walking back to our dressing rooms that evening, I put my arm around her shoulders and I said, okay, so for the premiere, do we wear Armani or Ralph Lauren? And she laughed, because it is our fervent hope that we are invited to the premiere, and that we get to stroll down the red carpet and wear long, beautiful gowns and age-inappropriate shoes and have a glass of champagne. Because this really is something to celebrate, not just for us, but also for those kids that ran home from school to watch us, because it means that they cared enough to include all of us. And I know you've been seeing the trailers for the film, and there's a lot of comedy. As a matter of fact, I laugh out loud. There are 3 things that really make me laugh, and Johnny Depp is very funny. And I'm missing the screening about a week ago, but I've talked to those who have seen it, and the 4 elements of Dark Shadows, to my mind, are really the romance, the fantasy, the horror, and the humor. And you're seeing a lot of comedy in the trailers, but I am told that all of those other elements are there in the film, and that it's really, really wonderful. I think, the legacy for Dark Shadows is that we did stories that really borrowed from classical literature, and we did it in our own way. But we started off with Jane Eyre, and moved on to Picture of Dorian Gray and Wuthering Heights and Rebecca, Monkey's Paw, a little bit of Edgar Allan Poe, a lot of Mary Shelley. And I don't think the little kids watching the show picked up on that, but they did respond to the story, because it always comes down to story. So I think that's part of our legacy. And the other is what our show meant to young kids, why they invested themselves in it. And I get letters all the time when people order an autographed book, and nobody sends in an order without a letter, and I read them all. And I got one just a week or so ago, and it was from a man who said, I'm 51 years old, and I'm a happy man. My first grandchild is just born. And thanks to Dark Shadows, I got through a terrible, terrible childhood. My only good memory of my childhood was sitting with my grandmother watching Dark Shadows. And I think that is the part of the legacy that means the most to me. So, thank you for being here. Who guessed what I was wearing? These are lovely. Thank you. Oh, these are beautiful. And you've all been, you've got the little tickets, and we've put them in the fishbowl. The nice people at Warner Brothers have given us, I think we've got, it's 15 posters here. But then, look at these. That really should be enough for all of us. So we've got a nice big stack of these. So when I'm signing your book, and you've got one of the numbers, bring it up and I'll sign a poster for you too. Does anybody have a question? I feel like I've covered 46 years.